On this cold winter evening, I thought let us talk about the story of DNA. So think of this as a story time. And we're going to talk about how people came into a conclusion about what the structure of DNA was. This being a story time, I would like you guys to just sit back and relax and just listen to the story and learn as much as you can. Now place yourselves in the year 1869. So this was the time when scientists were still unaware about what exactly a cell was. And that was when they were looking into the contents of a cell. So there was this one particular scientist who was given the task of looking upon white blood cells or the lymphoid cells. Now he couldn't just get white blood cells from anywhere. So what he did was he took up band-aids from different clinics around him, and the pus cells had white blood cells in them. So he took those remnant pus cells, took out the white blood cells, and isolated this particular material which he coined the term nuclein. Now this nuclein he did not know at that time, but it was basically DNA along with its proteins. So this nuclein, he found out that it was rich in hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen and phosphorus, and it had a particular ratio of nitrogen and phosphorus. And this was it about nuclein. Now we did know that nuclein existed, but we didn't exactly know that it was the carrier of genetic information which humans could ever possess. We also did not know that it was made up of different kind of bases. We did not know that it was a nucleic acid. And the next step for this was taken in 1881 when this particular scientist coined the term DNA, which is deoxyribonucleic acid, thereby stating that it's a nucleic acid, which is basically a polymer of nucleotides, which is further divided into nucleosides, etc., etc. And he also discovered the bases that make up DNA, that is adenine, guanine, thymine, uracil, and cytosine. At this point, everyone knew that something called DNA exists in the cell, but they did not know its function until the next big step was taken in 1900s, where Mendel's theories were finally recognized by people. Sutton and Boveri finally gave off their chromosomal theory of inheritance, and Thomas Hunt Morgan also did his experiments on Drosophila melanogaster, and all of these conclusions together gave us a deeper insight into the function of chromosomes, genetic material, inheritance, and how exactly characteristics are transferred from one generation to the other. By then people knew how chromosomes worked, by then people knew how mitosis worked, and we also knew how characters are passed on from generations to generations, but we did not know that DNA was the thing that was responsible for all of this. Now another event unraveled. This is around 1928 and the scientist's name was Griffith. What he did was he experimented with Streptococcus pneumoniae. These bacteria cause pneumonia. So there are two strains of this bacteria. One is the S-strained one, which is virulent or which is capable of killing the organism it infects. And it has a polysaccharide coat on it, which gives it the properties of virulence. And the other one is R-strained bacteria, which is non-virulent or which is not capable of killing the organism it infects. So what Griffith did was infecting a group of mice with both these bacteria, and the obvious results are the mice that were infected with S-strained bacteria died, and the ones which were infected with R lived. His next step, what he did was taking an S-strained bacteria, the virulent one, and killing it using heat. And now since it's dead, it infects the mice and nothing happens to the mice. Now the next step is the most crucial one. He takes a heat-killed S-strained bacteria and an R-strained bacteria and infects the mice. Now mind you, the S-strained bacteria which was heat-killed alone did not kill the mice, but an R-strained bacteria and an S-strained heat-killed bacteria together when infected into the mice ended up killing it. And he needed something to explain this process. Now that something was the transforming principle. So something occurred inside the mice that enabled the properties of virulence of the heat-killed S-strained bacteria to move into the R-strained bacteria, hence transforming the R-strained bacteria to become virulent, develop a polysaccharide coat, and hence kill the mice. So this thing that transformed the R strain bacteria into a virulent one, that moved from the heat-killed S strain bacteria to the R strain bacteria, was what was thought to be the genetic material of an organism, and people needed to know what this was. Now, around 1933 to 1944, three important scientists, Avery, MacLeod, and McCarty, together set up to find out what the nature of this transforming principle was. They needed to know what exactly this genetic material was. Initially, they thought it was some protein, until they conducted a few experiments to come to a conclusion that at the end, this transforming principle was none other than DNA. And these experiments were basically isolating all the substances present in the heat-killed S-strain bacteria in the Griffiths experiment. They isolated proteins, they isolated RNA and DNA. Now what they did was infecting the R-strain bacteria with each of protein and RNA and DNA, and finding out which of these exactly turned the R-strain bacteria into a virulent one. Turns out DNA did it. Now, to confirm their inferences, what they did was they tried putting protein and DNA and RNA inhibiting enzymes into this whole process of transformation to see which of it stops it. So turns out only DNase, or DNase is basically the substance that inhibits DNA or basically destroys DNA. And when DNase was put in the transforming principle setup, they found out that transformation did not take place, hence proving that the transforming principle was nothing other than DNA. Now, around 1950, Erwin Shergaff and one of his research students together set on to isolate the different substances in DNA. And they finally isolated, using some chromatographic techniques, adenine, guanine, cytosine and thymine, and hence proved that DNA has these four nitrogen bases. And they also found out that the amount of adenine and thymine was equal, and so was the amount of cytosine and guanine. And this was the basic principle of Shergaff's rule, which you're going to learn and which Watson and Crick used in order to postulate their final model of DNA. So in 1952, Rosalind Franklin discovered the X-ray diffraction method in order to find out the molecular structure of different substances. So what happens in this is, for example, DNA is hit up with a set of X-rays, and parts of the atoms deflect back these X-rays, hence forming a diffraction pattern on a given screen. And this diffraction pattern will help us figure out what the exact structure of that molecule is. This was the first image of DNA found out by the X-ray diffraction pattern. And this was the forerunner for Watson and Crick to describe the exact model of BDNA. So in 1953, Watson and Crick, by assembling data from different scientists, all the scientists that we have learned about previously, they finally came into conclusion that DNA in fact is a double-stranded structure made up of two strands of nucleotide polymers, and these nucleotide polymers are wound with each other in the form of a helix, something like this. And this is what they figured out from the image produced by the X-ray diffraction pattern. And they were totally not modest about this, because right after their discovery, they apparently went to a pub in England and just screamed out that they had found the secret to life. Well, they weren't wrong, because DNA, as you know, is the entire basis for new age biology and all that we needed to know about the functioning of our body. Using all this data, they finally came down to 5 important postulates, which is basically the structure of BDNA, in which they describe the structure, obviously. They talk about how DNA is made up of 2 different strands of nucleotides, which is bonded with each other in the form of hydrogen bonds between the nitrogen bases. They also talked about the pitch, that is about 3.4 nanometer. They talked about the distance between 2 base pairs, that is about 0.34 nanometer. They talked about the coiling of DNA, which is in a right-handed fashion. They finally also talked about the anti-parallelity of the 2 strands of nucleotides which compose the DNA. And these are the 5 postulates which you can look upon and learn. And this wasn't it about the journey of DNA. There were further experiments which proved the semi-conservative nature of DNA replication and the composition of DNA, the Human Genome Project, and so many other things which give us a deeper insight into what DNA was. But the main breakthrough for this ends in 1953 with Watson and Crick giving us the basic structure of DNA. Well, that was it for today's video, and I know it's pretty different from what I make usually, but yeah, I'm gonna expand my content and do whatever I want to. Not exactly whatever I want to, but you get the point. So yes, thank you so much for watching. If you really like this video, please let me know. If I ever have the mood of making something like this again, I will definitely do so.